Welcome back to Six Arrows. We are 2 weeks out from the start of the season. Going in to hang some trail cameras today. A lot of you might think, why didn't you have these out earlier? In general, I don't like to look too far ahead. I think you can sometimes outsmart yourself with too much information. I came in and walked this piece last week and identified 3 or 4 real pinch points that I felt would be concentrating deer, whether it's food, whether it's the geography, anything of that nature, sign. And I've marked 3 or 4 of those on my onX map. And I'm going to go back to those and put a camera up, see what kind of information I can get this week. And then I'll come back, pull the cards next weekend, and then be in here the weekend after that. Probably setting up for my first hunt based off of what I learned from those trail camera pics. So I'll take you along, show you where I set up my cameras, and also some of the sign that I run into. Let's get to it. Okay, we are to spot number 1, and I want to tell you a little bit why I've picked this place. First off, what we have here is I'm looking for terrain features that kind of funnel the movement of the deer. We have a very steep gully over here. There is a very heavy deer trail that comes through here. We do have acorns, but there's quite a few acorns, so I'm not just sitting on acorns. I want to find acorns in a place that deer would be funneled to anyways. So like I said, we have acorns. I can hear them falling all around me. I do have plenty of deer droppings, as you can see there. I also have some extremely thick heavy bedding on the top of this ridge here. So I think what I'll try to do is set up in the saddle from one of these smaller trees over here to be able to shoot stuff as it comes off this ridge. Or there's also an extremely heavy trail that comes up out of the gully along here, and I believe they come along this path right here. So setting up somewhere up in here with the tree saddle would be what I would be trying to do in this situation. As far as setting up a trail camera, I don't like to get them too close to the trail. I like to take more of a wide view of what I can see, so I'm probably going to set up the trail camera on this tree here, one that's kind of farther back, but I still have a wide, clear view that I can see down here. Not just see the deer, but see kind of where they're coming from. So let me get this thing in the tree and then I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so we have the first trail camera set up right here, as you can see. So what I look for there is an appropriate elevation so I can see where it's going. And one good thing to do is set your cell phone up on the face and take a little video so you can understand the range of view that you have set up for the camera. So I have that heavy trail coming down here, winding up there. I got bedding behind me. Got this kind of large tree right here, so it's also tucked in. And also being on public land, I want to make this as inconspicuous as possible, and I also use very cheap cameras. So this looks like kind of a good setup for me. From a trail camera perspective, it's a place that should funnel the deer. I should have deer because of the acorns, because of the funnel, and because of the bedding. And we'll see if we get anything interesting on camera. Okay, we're at spot number 2. This one is purely based on a geological or a geographical pinch point. There is a series of gullies with a creek running through the bottom of them down here, and it kind of divides this section in half. There are only 2 or 3 heavy trails that come out of that gully to get up to the top. And that's where you had the bedding back there, you had the acorns back there, and there's also another very, very thick bedding area on the other side, on the top of the other ridge. And not as many acorns on that side, but there is an open meadow. So to get between the two, they have to go through this gully. In my scouting last week, I identified just 3 or 4 places where it appears that they come up out of this on a regular basis. This one is particularly steep, and so for that reason, I think I can get a shot opportunity from across the gully over here. That would only be a 15-20 yard shot. I can set up kind of in the ferns over there on the ground, and as steep as this is, I think I shouldn't have to worry too much about getting busted, because they'll be concentrating on getting up that hill. Now, I probably won't have them standing there hanging out while I'm trying to get a shot, but I'm going to give it a go nonetheless. So I'm going to put my other trail camera up here so I can see kind of this top of the hill area to understand how many deer are using this and about what time they're using it. Okay, so we have it set up here. There we go. At about the right height, I'm going to take a look and set the camera on the face of the trail camera so you can see the field of view that I have here. And that steep trail comes up right through here. And I'll also have the area over here where it kind of branches out in 2 different directions. So not right on top of it, so I get some additional information out of it. I don't need to see their noses. I want to see when they're moving and where they're going, so this one should do the job too. Okay, so we got, not sure how well that shows up here, but we do have deer tracks. The dirt is very sandy here, so that makes it nice and easy to see. And then you have a heavy deer trail that comes up here and then goes up that hill behind there where I set that stand. And if you walk along this, I mean, you'll see they're not getting up there. That's all really a cliff face, and it gets steeper as you go that way too to come out of this creek bottom. So that's why that's such a good place to concentrate their movement. Okay, here's spot number 3 where I'm going to put a camera. This one is a little bit more interesting and a little bit tougher to hunt. Again, we're in a little cut here. Bedding area is on that ridge over there, number 1. And on that ridge over there, number 2. This is that same creek bottom we were talking about. And there's a heavy trail that comes down here and then winds its way along this culvert here. So I think that's one of the primary ways they're getting between the 2 bedding ridges. So I think this is a prime spot to try to use the that pop-up blind in. Possibly setting up over here so I could shoot anything coming down here or anything that's coming down this side too. So this one's more of a personal challenge to myself. I want to see if this is something that I can make happen. So it's going to be a little bit tougher to put a camera up here that can see kind of a broad area, but let me give it a shot and we'll see what happens. Okay, so we got the last trail camera placed right up here. I pulled out some of the smaller low brush around it so it had as much of a chance of shooting down in here as it could. There's a trail that comes down here and from the other side. There are a couple more trails right around here, all within like 15 yards. that I'm probably not going to get a view of, but like I said, just trying to learn from this one. I'm not sure what I'll learn, how much I'll learn from it, but trying to think outside the box a little bit, so we'll see. So that's the 3 trail cameras that I came in here with the plan to set today. So I'm going to just scout my way out of here and make sure I take a different way than I did on my way in, so I'm hitting more of this piece. But we'll come back in a week and pull the cards and see what we find. Okay, already seeing deer sign. Anytime you see something that looks like this, a deer was through here nipping off the top, and that I'm seeing quite a bit of that in this creek bottom here. So I might at some point have to take a hunt in one of these trees here, somewhere along this end, where I have a heavy trail coming down and a whole bunch of this natural browse that they seem to be spending some time with. Another little tip, I like to walk creek beds if I can. Number one, it's an easy way to identify pinch points because there tend to be rather defined crossings in them. Also, it's a good place to look for other human sign. So those are my prints, but there's another one right here, which is an older one, but that's somebody else. So it's good to know where people have been and where they have not been. Looking at this little creek bottom area, there is a heavy trail that comes off this ridge that I found last week. Right over here is a heavy trail up that I put the trail camera on. We have all the natural browse here. This is to the east, so the predominant winds out here are west to east. So I could see myself hanging in one of these trees here and be able to have deer coming in down off this ridge and hitting this natural browse, and then making the heavy crossing there to go up to where the acorns were on the other side. Also, when it makes sense, I love using these creek cuts as a way to access an area. For one, your scent tends to stay down in here. I'm also semi-protected by the banks from a visual perspective, and your scent tends to be drawn down the channel because that's kind of the path of least resistance for the wind. So yeah, wherever I can, I do try to use these to get into my spots whenever I can. Here's another one of those creek bottom weed patches that is just browsed very, very heavily. This one also doesn't seem to have a parallel one on the other side. So hanging in one of these over here, being able to shoot this, and my wind is probably, if it's a west to east wind, is going to be pulling that way or pulling down the stream bed here as well. So this is another good spot to keep an eye on. I'll mark this on Onyx. So I don't normally pay that close of attention to old buck sign at this time of the year. Early season, I really want to get a few antlerless deer down, but when you see something that big, you do take note. And there's another little tree there, this little guy here, and that one up there, right there, has some markings on it too. So this looks to be a good spot that I will mark on the map for when it's buck killing time. And there does appear to be a pretty heavy trail that comes down off this ridge again too. So I'll mark that on the map. Alright, made it back to the house. And while I was driving home, I was thinking I should probably give you a quick overview of what my goals are from a scouting perspective, And what are the things that I really look for? So, number one, I'm looking for anything that's going to concentrate deer. So, the first thing I try to identify is where are they bedding, and then where are they eating, and then where's water. And then I look for the best like travel corridors to get between those things. And then the other main thing that I look for, and it probably is pretty high up the list, is where are the other hunters going to go? So, because that human pressure can drive so much about where deer go and where they move and where they live. So those are kind of the primary things that I look for. Number one, identify the bedding. Number two, identify where they're going from the bedding, either food or water, anything of that nature. Number three, identifying the best and most highly used paths to get to those places. And then number four, or 3A, where are the people going? What's the easiest places to get to from the access points? And then try to find the little pockets off of that, because that's where the deer are going to be. If you stick to those things, I think you'll find some deer, and I'll definitely keep you up to date on what happens this hunting season to see if my scouting pays off. Thanks for watching 6 Arrows.